All right. And we are live. That is exciting. I'm just going to wait a quick moment to make sure we're coming in loud and clear on YouTube and on my cellular device so that we know there are no technical difficulties. I'm using some new, actually, that's not true. I'm using some new tech today, but it's my old tech that's giving me an issue. So all right. Okay. We are live. And I just heard us loud and clear. So that is great. If you are here in the chat, please let us know. But today I am so honored to have Kelly on. And Kelly is here to talk to us a little bit about the novels that she's writing, and then also a little bit about the indie and self-publishing space, because I've got some really interesting questions there, I think. So Kelly, I'll turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Hi, so thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Kelly Blanchard. I am the author of the Chronicles of Loic series. It's a science fiction fantasy blend, very much of a blend, because some kingdoms it's very medieval with magic, and the neighboring kingdom is very high-tech flying cars and everything like that. So it's a 9-book series. The last book was just released today, so I'm very excited about that. So yeah, that is what is going on.
That's so exciting that the last book is coming out. Congratulations. That's just like absolutely huge. I only wish to have 9 books out there one day. Everybody is also just saying hi in the comments. So everyone, what we're going to do today is I am interviewing Kelly. So I've got several questions for her, but then if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments. It's going to be a chat all about writing. It's going to be a chat about books and bookish industry. So we're just going to go for it. And Kelly has just been such an angel, because this is my first interview as part of this kind of series that I want to be doing. So she has been so helpful. And Kelly, I know it's not your first interview. So
no, it's not, but it's okay. I love helping everybody out. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I see there's several people here already. So please, everybody, leave us your questions. We'd be happy to answer them. Before kind of I get into the questions that we have planned, I was hoping that you might tell us just a little bit about your series and your new book that has come out, because like a 9-book series, that's a large series.
yeah, so the series follows Loic, of course, because there's a Chronicles of Loic, and he's a sorcerer prince, and the whole series begins with him coming back after being mysterious. He's been missing for 10 years, and he's been presumed dead. When he comes back, he finds out that his name was dragged through the mud, and people have accused him of all these things, and he's trying to figure out what's going on and help people and resolve things. He's a good guy, but nobody believes him anymore. Nobody trusts him. And at the same time, you have these kingdoms that are on the verge of battle, especially his own home kingdom. So he's trying to help people, and nobody wants him to help, but they do want him to help. He has magic, so they think he has the magical solution of everything. But the problem is bad things still happen, and when bad things happen, they blame him. So he's constantly trying to help people, do what's right, but he constantly keeps getting blamed for everything bad, even though he prevented worse things from happening. But they don't see that. They just see, you didn't stop this one thing from happening. You should have. You had magic. And so the entire series is one problem after another that he keeps on encountering and trying to help people. But, it's not people aren't really grateful for that, because, you might have experienced in your own life when you do something and everybody blames you for things that you couldn't control. And you're like, well, you didn't see the one good thing that I did. So that's basically Loic's story, but it's much more than that. It's he has magic, and it's much more complicated and so forth. So, but yeah, I went to a 9-book series, and I didn't expect it to go that long, but it did. And it's a fun series. You get royalty, but then you get assassins, and you get dragons, and then eventually you get spaceships and dragons in space, and not in space itself, but on spaceships, and it's all that fun stuff. So that is the Chronicles of Loic, which is a very complicated series in a nutshell.
I mean, I just hearing about it, it sounds super interesting, and I love the sci-fi fantasy crossover. I also think it's a story, I mean, we can all relate to, that instance where we've done something to try and help someone or to try and do better, and then it just ends up backfiring or something goes out of our control. So yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Exactly. And he's like, everyone keeps saying he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy. And he's like, I'm not the bad guy. But then he's like, well, you know what? Maybe I should be the bad guy. Maybe I should become a villain because everybody thinks I am. I might as well do it. It'll be really easy. But he's like, but I don't want to. So he constantly walking that line. And he has this flamboyant attitude. He's a lot like Loki, Tom Hiddleston's Loki.
Stop, you're pulling at my heartstrings. Like I'm already in love.
He has that flamboyant attitude. So sometimes he gets himself in trouble. But then a lot of times behind the scenes, when nobody else is around, you see him and you're like, oh, okay, that's not how he really is. So.
Oh, that just sounds like a story that would steal my heart because I love stories like that. Like people have cast him as the bad guy, I suppose. Yeah. So he's like, well, why not?
Might as well.
That's so great. I mean, that's so great. So, I mean, what inspired you? I guess another question I had about this series in particular is what inspired you to do the fantasy sci-fi crossover? Are they two genres you really love? Or like, was there something that just clicked one day?
I've always been a fan of Star Wars, which to me is kind of a blend of Star Wars and fantasy and sci-fi.
Totally.
So I really like that. And of course, I love fantasy itself, but then I do like some parts of sci-fi. So I started off in the fantasy part, and then I decided, you know what? I also want the sci-fi part. So I kind of just brought them together, and they work really, really well together. It's lots of fun to see how that happens.
Yeah, so. I know. I agree. They're stories I love to read. So that's super interesting. I would say I write similar, like fantasy, but I would say with a sci-fi twist, not like a full crossover. But so I guess like you're 9 books in, which is amazing. How did you get your start in writing? Was it a passion, a forever passion, or something that you grew into?
I would have to say it was a forever passion. It's an interesting way of putting it. Stories have always been a part of my life. And before I could even write, I was drawing, and I can't draw. So I did stick people with dialogue bubbles because I wanted to tell stories and so forth. And so when I finally figured out how to do quotation marks and proper paragraphs, I was like, okay. So I started, just playing around writing. But when I was 12, I remember washing dishes, and we're facing the west, and the sun was setting. And I was like, I want to describe that. So I was like, I really want to get good at describing something as beautiful as that. So I made a conscious decision that day of I'm going to start writing and becoming a good writer. So after that, I just started writing. I started with this description and just playing around with the description because that's one of the hardest parts of being a writer is writing description. I want to become good at that. So I did that. And then I branched over to fan fiction at first, played around with that. And then I went over and started my own universe. And it's been like that ever since.
I love fan fiction is, I think, so key in developing as a writer, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. People don't understand sometimes. I was like, you're playing in somebody else's universe that you don't have to build. And building a universe can be really hard. So if you can figure out how to build characters, how to do dialogue, plot, all the stuff in somebody else's universe, and then you create your own universe, you got those basic other, elements of writing figured out. You just have to now figure out world building and all that. So
that's so. I agree completely. And I've heard you mention a couple times description and dialogue, and you were saying like you wanted to describe something and nail that down. So, I mean, I know it wasn't one of the questions that we had discussed, but I have to know, do you prefer writing dialogue or description?
It just depends. If both of them come easy to me now, the dialogue is super easy. I imagine like a movie in my head and have I imagine, the characters, I can see everything and I can hear everything. So that's kind of supernatural and it was so much fun. The description, I worked really hard and making sure I was good at that. And now it comes really good. I can write fight scenes and everything I need to. And, so it's okay. The hardest thing to ever describe for me is space battle scenes, just because of how you can move in every direction. That's the hardest part. And so, but other than that, it's fun.
Space battle scenes. I haven't had to tackle that yet, but I can see how that would be very difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's not the same as on the ground battles, but yeah.
I mean, even like I've had to do flying battles before,
But
but like there's still an up, down, like there's still directions.
yeah.
So
And also, you have explosions on, in the atmosphere. You have an explosion, whereas in space, like, is there an explosion? Is it what happens to
yeah,
it?
I guess you have to go and research all of that. Like if there's this action, that's so interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Research, eh? Yeah, I'm sure you do a lot of that.
Depends. I used to write historical fiction, way back, just because I don't do it because I don't enjoy it anymore. But it was during the Crusades, it was during the medieval times, so I studied a lot of medieval politics, medieval, stuff like that. So when I finally said, you know what, I'm done with historical fiction, I don't like it. I'm going to go back to fantasy because I have always loved fantasy. And so by that time, I had already gotten a good handle of how to write, medieval politics and, things like that. And all those different things that requirements with, high court and this and that. And then, one of my other future series I'm going to be publishing that's already finished written is about pirates. So I went and I researched some pirates and so forth. And, then I just, whatever I need that I'm not very confident with, I will go and I would research. I'll just research that bit because I like to make up stuff. I do not like to be like those people like, okay, so I need this Earth to be away from this sun, this far away from it, and it has to be this big. And, I don't do that. I'm just like, they're on an Earth. So they're on a world where there's grass, there's water, there's air. Now, can we keep going?
So. Yeah. So there's a certain amount of research, but not like an overwhelming. Yeah.
I like to use my imagination.
I find you can go down that research rabbit hole so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've mentioned a whole bunch of series that you've, written, historical fiction, fantasy, all of those things. You've got an upcoming series.
I have two upcoming series already written.
Two upcoming series. Sorry. Yeah. Have you faced any like challenges along the way that you might advise other indie and or self-published authors that it might happen, or any challenge that was particularly like that struck you as you've been in your career?
All I would say is be careful with who you interact with online. So because that's the one thing I've encountered. Some people that were fans of mine and then they contact me and then they get really, really creepy and they start blocking me all over social media. And I'm like, block, 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 block. I don't care. And I send my husband, who's an admin in my group. I'm like, just deal with this person. I don't want to deal with it. But that's honestly the hardest thing I deal with, is that people can become really weird. But writing-wise and everything, honestly, it's not. I don't really have too much of an issue. I mean, marketing is hard. It always is. Getting your name out there, getting kind of confident, and that's to me, that takes time. It's hard work, but it's definitely worth it. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but yeah.
No, totally. And I mean, I think a lot of folks here listening in are I'm sure some people are pursuing traditional publishing, but I know you've kind of done both realms. You've done self-publishing, traditional publishing. I guess marketing wise, just because you brought it up, like what would you recommend to indie authors in terms of marketing? I suppose, like, what is it that you do for marketing?
What works best for me is I find a platform that works best. Like one of my friends was like, you have to get on Twitter. I'm like, okay.
I'm also not on Twitter.
I'm fine on Twitter. I just started again. I mean, I have it. I'm there, have a good following, but I forget about it.
Oh, you are there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not there.
Fine. But I'm on Facebook. And what I find is I like to be in a lot of writing groups. People are like, why writing groups? I want to connect with my readers. I was like, writers are readers, so connect with them. And so writing groups are easier to find. Mm-hmm. So connect with them, go in those writing groups and interact. Just interact. If somebody has a question, you can answer it. If you can't answer it, but you know someone who can, see about getting that person involved. If you want to know the answer, don't just comment following, because that's kind of, but if you want to build a relationship with people, so to say, that's a really good question. I want to know the same. I want to know that too. And then people are like, oh yeah, I know. I've been wondering this for a very long time. So do that. And if you have a question, no one else is asking it, ask it, because you might help somebody who is too shy to post. You never know. And what happens is that your name becomes more and more visible. And people always say, presence is key. And it's often mistaken that the presence that's key is the presence of your product, which would be your books. But what I found to be true for me is that it's the presence of you, the presence of me. And that's what's key. So I can, that way, when you're visible and people know you and everything like that, and you say, hey guys, I have a Facebook group, or I just published this book, whatever, then people are more prone to follow you, like you, whatever it is, because they know you and they like you. So that's my main recommendation. No matter if you're traditionally published or self-published, doesn't matter. I know people who do both. And I'm saying just go out there, interact. If you have a Facebook page or whatever you are and whatever platform you are, get your own little community growing. But mainly just interact with, the community. And on Twitter, they have the writing community, and I've been playing around with that one. And you just, you do hashtag writing community, and everybody's interacting with each other. And you just want your name to become visible. And that's what I find is most helpful when it comes to, I guess you could say pre-marketing, because when you finally say, here's my book, they're like, oh, okay, and they just devour it. So
that's so interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people they skip to ads or social media and all these things, but I really like kind of your take on, having a presence and just being a part of the community. Yeah, I think that's I feel like, as a new author, things can get super overwhelming. And when you hear things about ads and copywriting and it just becomes a lot, right? So I think the way you put it is really nice, and it's something that you can really do. And I mean, if you're genuine in doing it, it can work out really well.
Also, you don't know who you'll meet in those groups, and you might meet by the time you need to do ads or whatever, you might meet somebody who's better at it than you and say, hey, how do you do it? And then they can say, oh yeah, and they'll be willing to help you because they know you. And you don't know what connections you'll make and what resources you'll have then. So
yeah, for sure. Literally everybody is better at any help I can get, I will take. No, but yeah, that's a super interesting take. And you mentioned your Facebook group, and I know you've got quite a large following on Facebook, but I also know you do a lot for writers in your Facebook group. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my Facebook group is, it's where I'm supposed to be posting about my writing adventure, but what tends to happen is I follow lots of these art pages, and every time I see a beautiful picture, I share it in my group, because sometimes that image can inspire other writers. So oh, that looks just like something for my story. So they'll save that just for inspiration. They're not going to steal it. They just save it in a file, or they just, dog it or something like that. And then they go, oh, that character looks just like my character. And I'm like, well, maybe you contact that artist, and then that artist can, do your characters for you. Who knows? And so that's the one thing that happens in my group a lot, and I really enjoy it. The other thing I've been doing for a while now is writing tips a day. And I just have, because I'm in so many writing groups, and I always answer the same questions. I'm just getting tired of repeating myself. So I'm like, I'm gonna put it all in one place. So when I need to copy and paste it, I can do that. So I'm doing that in my group, because I know there are lots of people of all stages in writing there. So I'm like, it's going to help them out as well. So that's what I'm doing there. And if anybody ever has questions, or they're stuck, or they just need to bounce an idea, people message me. I'm like, okay, and I'll help them through it. There's a person in Nigeria who messages me. It's like, okay, so how do you create conflict in your story? I'm like, okay, well, here, something like that. So yeah, I never know who you're going to meet where, and that's just what my group is all about. I just want to support and encourage the writing community, or just actually any community, creative community. So
that's so nice. I feel like as writers, it's really nice to find a space where we can ask questions, especially to somebody who's got 9 books out, because that's just sometimes I find, at least, I feel like the writing community is super close, but you kind of have to find it first. Like
Yes.
it's like hidden behind all the reader groups, behind the booktubers who booktube about books, like on YouTube. It's just like hidden
Yeah.
behind kind of the larger layer of books and reading. So I think that's really really lovely that you're doing that for authors.
Well, if anybody wants to join it, you can find me on Facebook.
Yep. And Kelly's website is linked down in the description box below. So everybody make sure you go check that out. One, because it is a beautiful website. And two, because I think you can find pretty much everything from your website, right? So
yeah, all my books are there, and my About Me page, you get my social media links and everything.
Yeah. And again, beautiful, stunning website. I aspire to it. I guess moving to the business side of things, because for anybody who's listening in right now, Kelly, my understanding is you initially self-published and then you were picked up by a small like indie publisher. So my first question is like, what helped you make that initial decision to self-publish?
Well, I had, with my historical fiction, I had gone with a vanity press where you had to pay them to do it. And I didn't like that because I wasn't able to do what I wanted. I found when I decided that I was done with historical fiction, I just unpublished everything and I was done because I had already written the first 2 books of the Chronicles of Luck. So I was trying to figure out what to do. And some of my friends were like, you need to self-publish. You have nothing to lose. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll do it. So I jumped in and I just started figuring it all out that way because I didn't really have anything else to do. And then as of last, I think it was last year, earlier this year, Fallback Press approached me and said, we like what your books, we love your covers, you're going to keep your covers. I'm like, but would you sign on with us? We will take all the risk. You don't have to lose, it doesn't cost you a dime, it doesn't cost you anything. And we will market you hard and we will get you out there and everything like that. And I was like, I know some of the people who's in Fallback Press. I'm like, so I'm thinking about it. And I told him first, I said, no, I like doing it myself. I have, I know what I'm doing. I like it. So, but then, so I talked to someone. I was like, you know what? I really don't have anything to lose. I'm not getting the momentum I want. Marketing takes money. I don't have that money, but they do. So why not? So that's what I've been doing. And I jumped on board and, it's been really awesome to see how things have progressed forward. So.
That's just so interesting because I feel like we're seeing that happen more often where publishers are picking up or want to pick up self-published novels. They see a good self-published novel, they see one that is getting a lot of traction, and then they kind of come and jump on that. And that's really interesting that you said no at first. Yeah, I totally get that because like I feel like the control thing is also a big aspect as to why people want to self-publish. So
yeah, and the thing is that they're allowing me to still have my cover design, not me design my covers, although they really want me to because I can do graphic design. But I'm kind of like, I'm not a cover designer, but they're still like, you can do whatever you want to covers because they've seen what I have had my cover designer do. They're like, just keep doing it. I'm like, awesome.
You've got the right idea. Go for it.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you're really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I really am. It's been fascinating. And like I said, I didn't think I would go with the publisher ever, but it's been interesting. It's Fallback Press is different because they only take on books they only take on self-published books, people who've been self-published, because they look at it and they go, this has potential to do better, but the author is floundering. So let's help them out. So that's what they do.
I didn't even, that's so interesting. To be totally honest, I didn't know there were publishers out there that just did that. That's so interesting.
Well, I think that's one of the unique things about Fallback Press, to be honest. Yeah. There are some out there that they watch, and if you have a good enough community and you're selling well, they will come and they will approach you and they will say, hey, let me publish your books. But Fallback Press is very involved in the writing community, very involved. And they are like, they're watching, especially with indie indie authors, and they're like watching it, and like they started because they're a relatively young press, and they started because they wanted to help those people they were watching flounder and everything like that, because they knew that they could help, so they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. That's a model of publishing that I have not. I mean, I know it's just a traditional publisher that is picking up indie books or self-published books, self-published books, but I've not heard like that structure in and of itself without anything else. I've not heard of a press doing that before. So that's super interesting. Learn something new every day, eh? I do have a follow-up question from the audience on that. And everybody in the audience, I know there's folks who've made comments and asked questions before. We're going to get to them at the end. But if you do have questions, please let us know in the comments. But Dania is asking, did you call the publisher back after you changed your mind, or did they contact you again?
They were in constant communication with me on Facebook, honestly.
Okay.
And so they was talking to me, and they were like, but come on. So when I changed my mind, they were already there, just ready for it and so forth. So, yeah.
So it was like a no, but they were still in your Facebook inbox being like, hey, what about today? What about today?
Kind of. Yeah. So
that's super fun. And so I think we'll go to audience question, but before we do that, I have one last question for you. A lot of folks here are either kind of at the phase I'm at where we're just getting started, or they're aspiring authors, but like what piece of advice might you give to somebody who, like what piece of advice would you give to yourself when you were just starting out?
Join my group.
Love it. Love it.
I have all those tips. I have so many of them. Which ones I pick, though? Okay, so my first advice is always, if you are writing your very first book, don't worry too much about publishing it, because you're trying to figure out how to do description, dialogue, character, developing characters, plot structure, all that kind of stuff. And that's a lot to really figure out. And then you want to figure out the marketing on top of that, and publishing and marketing. And that is really just, so I'm just like, write your first book and then put it away. Keep writing, like write another book. And then maybe write 2 or 3 more books. And then go back and look at the first one, and then figure out the whole editing and revision process. And then if you feel like it, publish it. So that's when don't worry about publishing that very first book, at least not right away. Just take your time. It's okay. So
I feel like the take your time mentality is so important, because it does feel like, I mean, I know I feel like a little bit of a rush, right? Because you always feel, or at least you always, this is me, but I always feel like a little bit behind, because I'm like, oh, they have like 3 books out, or oh, they have like 6 books out, and oh, you have 9 books out. Like, when can I get there? But it's a process, right? So I really love that.
I wrote so many books before the Chronicles of Loic that I'm never going to publish. And so, and so I didn't know it was going to be 9 books or anything like that. So it just happened, and it's 9 books, no more. But there are more series after that in the same universe. So there's a lot more reading material. And yeah, so.
You actually just answered one of our audience questions. So Kikila was asking, did you originally have a 9-book series in mind? Because 9 books, that's a lot.
Honestly, it was 1 book, which I split into 2. But I split into 2. And then I was like, okay, it's just 2 books. And then I was like, oh, wait, I have a plot hole I completely forgot about. So I wrote book 3. And then I got the idea for book 5. But then I was like, no, I needed this before that. So I wrote book 4. And then I wrote book 5. And then 6 came. And then finally 7, 8, and 9. By that time, I already knew how many books there were. I also have a short story collection that is not available on YouTube. You can only get it if you subscribe to my newsletter. And I have a guidebook that's going to be coming out. Eventually, I'm going to be doing like a 11 box sets. And that's going to have all 9 books, the short story collection, and the guidebook all put in together. So
amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And for anybody who wants to sign up to the newsletter, again, linked below on the website. And there's even a page for the short stories, I believe.
I took back at it. I can't remember.
I saw the short stories linked somewhere, because I
don't remember if I moved it when I got the book situated. So
I could be wrong. It could be elsewhere, but
it could be there, but I probably forgot to remove it. That's probably what happened.
All right. I saw some other questions and comments up above. So sorry, my scroll is reversed.
Something you wanted to ask about co-writing.
Pardon me? Oh, yes, we were talking about this before the stream. I'm so sorry. It's because I was just going through the questions that I had written. But yes, everybody, Kelly is co-writing, has co-written a full series that is going to be published very soon. And I know a lot of folks are super interested in co-writing right now. RK, who is here actually in the comments, or was here, I'm not sure if he's still here, is actually currently co-writing a novel. So yeah, my question is just like, how is that process, and kind of what is your process for co-writing a novel?
My process is a very addictive, very fun, not too complicated process. What I do is, my husband is my co-writer. We co-write, and we've been doing it for years now. It's so much fun. So what we do is we have a story. We get the story idea. We brainstorm what's the entire story idea, so we can make sure that we know what's going to happen. And then we have a set of characters. And the next series I'm publishing is called The Cerulean Gambit. That's a series I've already co-written with my husband. It's a 5-book series. The main characters are Adric and Insula. His character is Adric, my character is Insula. And then there are these other characters that are secondary characters that we tend to write, we share them mostly, depending on if Adric or Insula are in the scene. Whoever's in the scene, we share whoever it is. And so what happens is we go by paragraph by paragraph. So my character enters the room, says something to his character, then his character responds, and I don't know how his character is going to respond. I know what needs to happen in the scene, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And sometimes the characters make things happen that weren't supposed to happen, which is always hilarious and fun. So, and then his character responds, and then he gives me the computer back, and my character responds, and go back and forth, so on and so forth. If it's my character by herself in the room doing something that needs to happen, I just write that by myself. And then I go, here, read it. This is what happened. And he goes, oh, okay, and so forth. But then we just go back and forth, just co-writing. A lot of people say it's like role-playing or whatever, on something like that. I've never done that. I've only co-written like this. But it's so much fun because you can do it online. You can do it on, through email, because we used to do it when he was at work, because he used to work in a hospital. And I would be home because I work from home, and he would be co-writing back and forth. So we can write all day, never get tired. And we used to, before COVID hit, we used to be able to write 10,000 words in one day because we just kept writing and writing. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That is so fun. And so, I mean, because I've heard people co-write, and it's like, especially when there's multi-POV or different scenes, I've heard kind of the character method done before, where someone will write one point of view and somebody will write another point of view, or someone will write one character's scene, someone will write another character's scenes. But I've never heard of the like paragraph by paragraph dialogue. And it really does. I also haven't role played before, or I shouldn't say that. I haven't role played in a very long time, so I'm not really sure how it works with like the super high speed, whatever internet now. But it does sound like role playing. That is so interesting.
It is so much fun. You never know what's going to happen, and you get like I get my husband's reaction immediately. Like my character would do something to me, that's his character, and I like, why did you do that? I was like, it wasn't me. So I'm just like, what are you gonna do about it? So, but it's awesome because both of us have a little bit of different writing styles. So when we do it like that, our styles naturally blend. Totally. So people are like, we don't know who's writing what because they blend so well together. So
that is just so it just sounds like so much fun. Like it really sounds like so much fun.
I interview people's characters sometimes, and it's a similar style of writing. And people afterwards like, will you co-write with me? This was so much fun. I was like, I'm busy. I don't have time.
That's so fun. So like you will sit down with another author and then you'll interview their character.
What happens is normally online because the authors are elsewhere. What happens is they have a character that they are struggling with. They cannot figure out the motivation. They can't get the character to talk or whatever. So what they do is they set the scene. It's in their story world. I have no idea what the world looks like. So they had to set the scene. It's wherever the character is most comfortable. And then I come in as a person. It's all written in third person. So basically I'm writing myself in third person. And then I go in and I sit down with the character. It's all like a scene. And I start asking questions. And the only rule is that I'm kind of like in that room, in that world, I'm kind of like a ghost, so you can't touch me. So they can pass through me. I've interviewed villains who have tried to kill me. So that's why I had that rule. And it's so fun when they don't get away. And I have made really hardened characters just break down in tears. I have made tight-lipped characters start talking. And it's really interesting to see what happens. And afterwards, the authors are like, I have another book I have to write now. What's going to be happening? I was like, well, enjoy. So, yeah.
That is such a good, because I've heard that exercise to do to your own character, so where you go in and interview your characters, but I haven't heard of like another author coming in to interview one of your characters. That is so interesting.
Yeah, I find that it's kind of like children, okay? I don't have any kids, but I know children act like this. When you have your kids by yourself, the kids can be kind of crazy. When we take them out, they can be kind of angels. You're like, oh, they're great. They behave, but they
I was like that as a child. 100%.
Characters are like that. Characters will, misbehave with their author, and like, I'm just not talking to you. But you put another person in the room, and they're kind of like, well, I want to be nice to that person. I want to give a good impression, and so on and so forth. So they start behaving, and the author's sitting there like, what is going on? We never talk.
Yeah, you're getting like the breakthroughs because it's just like, oh, that's so interesting. Well, it sounds like I'm very interested in your co-writing methodology, because that just sounds like a super fun game. And I'm sorry if I'm lagging at the moment. I just noticed my computer is lagging a little bit. So, yeah, but just hopping back into the comments really quickly to make sure we get all the questions. This isn't a question, but Hudson was saying that she loves how the covers go so well together and each are so unique. We did get a question from RK. Do you think it's better for indie authors to write a series or the same number of standalones? So I guess 9 novels in a series, or 9 like standalones?
Honestly, it depends on the author and what they are more comfortable with doing. So I do plan on writing basically a collection of standalones, because of novellas because I'm like, I really want to write this specific story that I keep talking about in this, that's happened, but I can't because I just don't have time. But it's not going to be a long series. So I'm like, I can make a novella. Why not? But, so that's what I would say. It really depends on you. And it doesn't matter, you can't compare yourself to, if you write standalone, you can't compare yourself to somebody who writes a series, because everybody's style is different. And it's okay. You're okay if you write a standalone and somebody else writes a series. Just do your best, write a great book, and get it out there.
I love that. I know, I guess because there's a lot of chat about like folks will read through, but I think like, especially in the indie space, when people find an author, they seem to get pretty dedicated to.
Yeah, I found that out.
Yeah, I mean, you found that out in a not so great way, but.
Well, there was that too. But the good outweighs the bad, okay? So.
We had a few people just when we were talking about fan fiction mention that, but
great.
If anybody has any last questions, I am going to ask you one last question, because you sound like a very prolific writer. So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
How many words do you write a day?
At least 2,000 words, at least. Right now I'm writing 2 books at the same time, so I really don't know how much I am. But I normally have always had a goal of 2,000 words a day. But don't let that discourage anybody who's not writing 2,000 words. I didn't always do that. I used to write just whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I really want to write every day. So I was like, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day. And I did that for about a year. And then NaNoWriMo came up, and I discovered that. I was like, I need to write basically 2,000 words a day. So I have extra word count, and I will reach the 50,000 word mark ahead of time. So I started that 2,000 words for Nano. And then I just said, you know what, that was right. So I just kept doing it. And I've been doing it ever since. So
that's incredible. I am definitely not one of those people that writes every day. And when I do write, though, I write in massive chunks. But yeah, you have so many books. So I was really curious. And I guess this is a little bit of a follow-up question. And I do see a question in the comments. Everybody, this is last call. If you have questions, please let us know. We're going to get to them. But I do have a bit of a follow-up. So like, what does your daily writing routine look like? Because I'm just, a morning writer, evening writer, whenever writer?
My cats tend to wake me up around 4 o'clock in the morning just because they want food. And then I can't go back to sleep. So I'm just like, okay, you know what? I can just get some writing done. So I just get some writing done. Of course, I don't like to wake up that early if I can help it. But I do like to wake up. First thing I like to do is eat breakfast, just I don't do a fancy breakfast. I don't like breakfast, so I just eat it because I have to. But then I write. Because what happens is that they can get away from me, and then I get a headache. I don't feel like writing later on. So I just like, you know what? I'm going to write first thing in the morning. So I do it, get it done, get out of the way, and then move on. So that's what I like to do. Doesn't always work. Sometimes life gets in the way first thing in the morning. So you just got to roll with it. And there are days when I don't write just because I'm like this past week, I was exhausted. Saturday and Sunday.
Book launch.
I was so tired. And so I was like, I'm not working. I'm not doing anything. I'm just not doing anything. So, and that's okay. It's okay to take time for yourself. Self-care is necessary. So, but yeah. It's fine.
Okay, so I see there's a bunch of questions coming in, but I do have one from Instagram that I don't want to forget about. So somebody asked me over Instagram to ask you whether or not, not whether or not, how do you plan for a book release?
Honestly, my book releases have been pretty anticlimactic recently, just because when I went with Fall Brand first, they used to make me do these literally 5-hour-long book group events. That was hard. So I had to spend all week trying to prepare for that. And then after that, after like doing it 3 or 4 times, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore, you guys. I'm just sorry, I'm not. So honestly, I forgot today, I almost forgot that today was the launch day of my book 9. So when I remembered, I just posted it everywhere that I post. I'm like, guys, just so you know, my book's out. So I used to be much more, involved about launching a book, but I'm just like, I got tired after doing 5-hour events. That's straight. So much that my husband would have to cook and bring me the food so I wouldn't have to leave my computer and so forth. And so that wasn't fun. I just got tired of that. And just like, you know what? Here are my books. And my publisher, I'm like, you guys are supposed to be pushing it. So have fun. So that's the nice thing about it. The marketing aspect, I don't have to do that so much anymore. I just have to engage with my fans. So
yeah, that's super, super. I mean, that is one of the big upsides I can see about going with a publisher.
That is the main reason why I went with that. Okay.
Yeah. So. And I mean, I'm sure you brought a lot to the publisher. You brought your fan base to the publisher. So yeah, that's super exciting. And everybody, just so you know, again, Kelly's website is linked down below, but also so is the link to Kelly's Amazon author page, where you can also find all of her books. So all linked in the description below. So we have a couple questions from the crowd. We have 2 questions from Renee on outlining. So I'm going to say them both together as kind of like a 2-part question. So one is, did you outline per book or the series as a whole? And then the follow-up to that is, what outlining method did you use? And I guess this all kind of comes back to Kahila's question too, is, are you a pantser, planter, or planter? I
think there would be a plotter somewhere in there.
You're in the middle.
I'm in the middle. I'm a planter because I memorize. I have the beginning and the end of both the book and the series. Although Chronicles of Lloyd was the exception, because when I began that, I didn't know it was going to be a 9-book series at first. I thought I was done. But all the other series after that, I have had the beginning and the end basically figured out. I know what the overarching story is. I know what big highlight points are as well. And then what I do after knowing that for the series, I take each book and I basically do the exact same thing, just on a small scale. Then I go, okay, so I know the beginning and the first highlight scene, what's in the middle. And then I brainstorm with my husband and stuff like that. And then I figure out the next few scenes to get to the next highlight points. And then I don't really outline that. I might do a few sentences just so I don't forget, but then I just write that, and I'm kind of winging it because I like to let go with the flow. But once I get to that highlight point, I then look at the next highlight point and I figure out how many scenes are in the middle and how to get from here to here. And then I go from there. And sometimes a character or something will happen. It'll take me to a different highlight point that I didn't know was there. And so, but normally I end up at the end that I wanted to. I might not have gone the route that I had thought I was going to go, but I normally end up where I wanted to. My characters are happy, so that's what happens. But so yeah, I do series first, and then I do each book. Because by doing the series, I know how many books I'm going to have after that, and then I do each book individually. So, and you know, I do both. I plot it and I wing it. What's it what? So, but as for my my outlining, I tend to do, I don't know everybody's outline style. I just do normally, if I do write anything down, because normally I keep in my head. But if I do, I write big blocks of paragraph of that's one scene. It's everything I don't want to forget. If there's a line I don't want to forget, I say, this person, you know, got thrown out of the room or whatever. And if there's a line I don't want to forget, I put it in there. It's one paragraph. That's one scene. And then I go down and I'll just do another paragraph. That's the next scene. But I try to be as brief as possible, because I find if I write the entire thing in one page, you know, because it's all passive voice and everything, I have to flush it out. But if I write the entire thing like that, I will realize that I've written the entire book just in passive voice, and I don't want to go back and write it, you know. So I try to make sure that I do it, you know, vaguely, so I had the motivation to go and continue writing. So
it's funny you say it like that, because I feel the exact same way. I know many others don't, but I feel the same way, that I'm like, I mean, I was working on a thriller recently, and my outline, I used an outlining method because I hadn't written a thriller before. And my outline ended up being 10,000 words. And I was like, well, like, that's the book, you know, like
I had written a Star Wars story, and I posted online, and then I was writing a sequel, but I outlined the entire sequel. And everybody wanted a sequel, but I didn't post it because I didn't want to write it, because I had outlined the entire thing. And that's when I realized, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, because I wrote the whole thing and no one's ever going to see it, because it's just the outline. And it's very detailed outline, but I don't feel like writing it. So after that, I was like, well, I'm not doing that again.
Right, because you already have all the details in the story. Like, you told yourself the story. Yeah.
I did.
I know there's folks who like detailed outlining works, but I think we're the same in that sense. Is like, once you tell yourself the story, it's like
there's no surprise. There's nothing, you know, to discover. So
that's super interesting. So we have another question from Kahila asking, how did you come up with your book covers and titles?
For my book covers, how did I come up with them? I just told my cover designer, I was like, I want this, this, and that, and let me see what happens. And she just came back with magic, and I'm like, awesome. For the book titles, actually, each title is a phrase that's said in the book somewhere, and it normally is I'm trying to forget what I'm saying. It can be said by multiple characters. And so forth. So you don't know who it is and what it is and so forth. And it's so much fun when readers finally see that point, like, oh, that's what the title is. And so some of my readers go and they make it a point. That's the title again. That's the title again. And they have to keep track of it. It's so much fun. But honestly, though, fall grants, like, with the next series, you might change the title to something more generic. I'm kind of like, but I don't want to. I don't know. I'm still talking to him about that, so we'll see. But yeah,
that's so funny. I mean, I picked my titles. I picked my titles, and then I think I did it a little bit opposite of you. But then I made sure that somebody said it at some point in the book, because it's like an Easter egg that like that readers can look for. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I'm going to do one last call out to see if there's any more questions for Kelly. And if there are, then we'll answer them. But Kelly, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on today and being my guinea pig. You were my guinea pig.
I think it went great, to be honest. It's a very long interview, but it went fun. It was a lot of fun.
It was long. I think a lot of it went to the Q&A, and I really, really appreciate your time. And congratulations on book number 9. That is so absolutely fantastic.
I hope you continue doing these interviews, because they're a lot of fun. So
yeah, me too. Knock on wood. If anyone wants to be interviewed, let me know.
Oh, I got a lot of people who are up for that.
Please, if you want to post it in your Facebook group, that would be like so helpful. Thank you so much.
I will do that.
everybody connect with Kelly. Her website is linked down below. Amazon is linked down below if you want to go and check out her books. Kelly, is there anything that you want to say to kind of wrap up?
If anybody wants to immediately just join my Facebook group, it's called The Muses Realm, and you can just find that. I don't know if it says Kelly's writing.
I'm a member, so I can actually go and link it. I'm going to link it in the chat right now.
That is where I'm most active. I have a Facebook page. I'm trying to get into Twitter again, but my Facebook group is where I am most active, and it's a lot of fun. So I recommend that. But yeah, otherwise, I don't really have much more to say. Just if you guys are writers, keep writing, enjoy. If you're readers, keep reading. Please read my books, maybe. But if you don't, no hard feelings. It's okay. So.
I mean, your novels sound absolutely epic, and I can't wait to pick one up. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just getting the Facebook group because I want to make sure that it's linked here so everybody can immediately jump over there and join the Facebook group. That would be so, so, so awesome. I apologize. My computer goes very, very slow when I stream. Here we go. I got it. I got it.
Oh, no. I would have told you what it was if you wanted to type it up.
Here we go. It's just, I can post a direct link and then people can just click on it or copy and paste or whatever it is. So everybody, please go and join that Facebook group. And Kelly, again, thank you so much for joining. And yeah, we'll see everybody next time. And this will be a series that continues. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.